Hi, everybody that's already on the call. Welcome to our September webinar, Improving Team Communication. Today, for the first time, Imelda Lee is actually going to be presenting this month's webinar. Imelda started with Strawberry Seed in 2019 and has been an integral part of our team during her time. And I'm also really looking forward to hearing what she has to say today. As always, for those that have been on one of these before, please make sure that you pop any questions you have as we're going through into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. And at the end, we'll go through and answer as many as we can. Now, as always, we will answer what we can, but sometimes without the nuance, it can be a little difficult, but we'll always do our best. And we're always happy to take things offline afterwards if you have more questions. The other thing that I will say is that there will be a copy of this emailed out to everybody after the session in the next couple of days. Give us a couple of days to do some editing. Both Imelda and I are at a function tomorrow, so that might take a couple of extra days. And you'll get a copy of the slides as well. So they'll be available for you to access. So without further ado, we'll jump to the next slide. So I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of all the different lands on which we attend today and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I also want to extend that to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders peoples that are attending with us today. For those that are unfamiliar, we are Strawberry Seed Consulting. We are a boutique HR consulting firm that work with small to medium businesses right across Australia. You name the industry, we've probably worked with them. This is my gorgeous team. We are located both on the Surf Coast in Torquay, is where our head office is, in Geelong, in Melbourne and in WA. And as I said, borders are, which state you're in is no issue for us because we do work with clients across all states. In fact, I'm heading off to Sydney on Friday to do some training up there. We help with everything from hiring through to firing, anything else in between. And of course, as always, if you have any questions about any HR related issues, we're always more than happy to discuss them with you. But without further ado, I am going to pass over to Imelda to get on with today's webinar.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Carly. So firstly, thank you everyone for joining me this evening. My hope for this session is to not only provide you with practical tools and insights that you can apply in your work life, but also to offer valuable strategies for communication that can enhance your personal relationships. So whether it's with colleagues, clients, or loved ones, effective communication is a skill that touches every part of our lives. So while the focus tonight may be on improving workplace communication, I encourage you to think about these same principles and how you can strengthen your connections beyond the office as well. So what we're going to cover off is effective communication in teams, the elements of successful team communication, how we can encourage open and honest dialogue within the team, how to improve team communication, effective listening, harmful listening styles to avoid, modes of communication, and why choosing the right mode matters, and tools to better support communication. So why is effective communication important in teams? Well, it enhances team productivity, it improves team morale, assists with conflict resolution, as well as innovation and creativity, and it helps us to build trust and credibility within the team. Now, this report, a report came out from Indeed last week, and I was quite excited to see it because it aligned with this presentation really well. It stated that both employees and employers ranked communication as the most important skill for the future, surpassing the need to improve technical skills. And so as machines get smarter, it's expected more importance will be placed on soft skills such as empathy, active listening, collaboration, and positivity. So with so much talk around AI at the moment, these are the core skills that really do help us with our teams and our lives in general. So when you foster a culture of strong internal team communication, team members acknowledge each other's accomplishments, and it creates a sense of belonging among the team members, which keeps them more engaged and satisfied. Now, the key elements of successful communication. Effective communication starts with clarity. So when messages are concise, precise, and easy to understand, they reduce the chance of misunderstandings or confusion. And the goal is to ensure that everyone in the team knows exactly what is expected of them and what role they play in obtaining team objectives. So a quick tip around this is to use collaboration tools to document project goals, tasks, and expectations to keep everyone aligned. Being open and honest with the team, that sets the tone for trust and transparency. So when leaders communicate openly about business performance and team progress, it creates a culture of trust, which encourages others to share their thoughts and concerns more freely. Now, this is a quote from Simon Sinek that we often use in our leadership training, and it means that transparency doesn't mean sharing every detail. Transparency means providing context for the decisions we make. A common question that comes up for us, particularly in the disciplinary process, is do I need to tell my team about everything that happened with this person after performance managing them? And the answer to that is no. And it's not wise to share everything. You just need to provide the context for which you made that decision. So leaders set the tone for openness. And when you're transparent with your thoughts, decisions, and challenges, it sends a signal to your team that honesty is valued. Sharing both successes and struggles can humanize leadership and encourage others to do the same. An open feedback loop ensures that communication is a two-way street. Regularly providing constructive feedback while being open to receiving feedback yourself from others fosters growth and improvement. And this feedback cycle helps keep communication ongoing so small issues don't turn into big problems. And what we want to do is make feedback a normal part of your team culture so it feels less formal and more like a part of the everyday workflow. Successful communication often involves understanding not just the words spoken, but also the emotions behind them. And empathy helps to build trust in relationships within the team. When team members feel understood, they're more likely to communicate openly with us. And leaders should model empathy by acknowledging the emotions and experiences of team members during conversations. Body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions play a large role in communication. And for remote teams where non-verbal cues are limited, it's crucial to supplement communication with video calls where possible to maintain that element of human connection. And that's an essential part of Strawberry Seed Consulting. We actually work for the most part remote. And it's really important for us to take those moments and jump on a video call. We always have a video call with the entire team at the end of the week, albeit I know that we work across all industries and not everyone is working in that mode of communication, but it just helps for us to share a little bit about how we work. And over 90% of our communication comes from the things we don't say. So it's really important to get your body language right. So try to maintain an open, relaxed stance and maintain eye contact without staring for too long. Now, active listening is something that we're going to dive into quite a bit deeper within this session. Communication, it isn't just about talking, it's about listening. And active listening involves paying full attention to the speaker, acknowledging their message, and responding thoughtfully. When team members feel heard, they're more likely to engage and collaborate effectively. So how do we improve team communication? For team members to feel comfortable sharing their thoughts, it's essential to establish a safe and inclusive environment. And this means actively discouraging criticism that feels personal and encouraging thoughtful, constructive input. So make it clear that all ideas are welcome and that differing perspectives are a strength, not a cause for division. Individual check-ins, they're one of the best ways to encourage open dialogue. One-on-one meetings give employees a private setting where they can express concerns or ideas they may be hesitant to bring up in a group setting. And these meetings also allow leaders to provide personalised support and encouragement. So schedule your one-to-one meetings with each team member and make sure that they know that that is the time that is theirs to bring up any topic. It's my favourite way to share my ideas. All of my greatest ideas, I like to say, come out in my one-to-ones with my director, Carly. In a group setting, I'm usually a little bit quieter, but those one-to-ones, they're something that I really value in my employment. So promote a culture of feedback, and we do that by providing that safe feedback environment. We give structured feedback. We give and receive with an open mind. We choose a feedback model, and we use leadership role modeling. Now, for team members who may still feel hesitant to speak openly, providing avenues for anonymous feedback can also be really helpful. This way, employees can raise their concerns or offer suggestions without the pressure of being identified. And so you can use tools like anonymous surveys or digital suggestion boxes to gather feedback on the team or how processes could improve. Now, this is my favourite part of the session, effective listening and listening well. So effective listening involves understanding and addressing the speaker's underlying needs. Simply sharing speaking time or repeating back what was said does not guarantee comprehension. And there are several barriers that can prevent effective listening, and these include distractions. So external distractions such as noise or interruptions can make it difficult to focus on the speaker. And I'm not sure if anyone has been in a meeting with phones up, Apple Watches, someone tapping the watch. They're the sort of distractions that I'm referring to here. Also, our preconceived notions or biases can prevent us from truly hearing and understanding the speaker's message. Our own emotions, such as stress or anxiety, can affect our ability to fully engage with the speaker. And if we're not interested in the topic or speaker, we may tune out or not fully engage with the message. So this is a really good visual of some levels of listening, where not listening or superficial listening is ignoring what's being said, or you're distracted while listening, example on your phone. Listening to speak, so preparing what you're going to say, waiting to interrupt and tell your story. Or listening to evaluate, judging what's being said against your existing frame of reference. Do I agree? What's incorrect here? And ideally, what we want to do is listen to empathise. So listening to understand not only what's being said, but what's not being said and how the speaker feels and what they need. Now, active listening, that involves fully focusing on and engaging with the person speaking in order to understand their perspective and message. It requires attention to both verbal and non-verbal cues, such as body language and tone of voice. And in order to fully comprehend the message being conveyed, so it builds trust and strengthens relationships. It's a vital component of leadership and communication. And research has shown that people spend only 50% of their time active listening during conversations, and the other 50% on activities such as daydreaming or preparing a response. People who are preoccupied with their own thoughts and feelings are more likely to interrupt others' conversations. And look, we're all guilty of it. There's moments in time where this is probably applicable to us, and we can look at this now and hopefully learn some better ways to adjust our listening styles. So some strategies to overcome these barriers and engage in active listening, we can consider the following. Give the speaker your full attention and maintain eye contact, and avoid multitasking or interrupting. Focus on the speaker's message and try to understand their perspective. Avoid making assumptions or jumping to conclusions. Clarify any points you don't understand by asking questions. This demonstrates that you're engaged and interested in the speaker's message. And summarize the speaker's message in your own words to confirm your understanding and show that you're actively listening. So not all forms of poor listening are the same. There's actually multiple different types of not listening. And if we can identify which one is our own personal Achilles heel, then we can target our efforts to improve this key attribute of leadership. So we're going to go through the harmful listening styles to avoid. And harmful listening styles can undermine communication, hinder team dynamics, and erode trust. So we'll address some of the damaging listening listening styles to avoid, along with detailed explanations and strategies to combat them. So to start off with, selective listening. Selective listeners focus on parts of the conversation they find interesting or relevant, while ignoring or tuning out everything else. This style often results in missing key information and can cause the speaker to feel dismissed or undervalued. It can make team members feel unheard, leading to frustration and disengagement. Important details are missed, and miscommunication can occur. Now, we can combat this through being fully present in conversations, eliminate distractions like phones or emails, summarize key points from the speaker to show you're engaged with the full message, and clarifying questions if unsure about the details you may have missed. Interrupting occurs when listeners cut off the speaker to interject their own thoughts or conclusions. This can stem from impatience, eagerness to share ideas, or the assumption that the speaker's point is understood. Interruptions send the message that the speaker's contributions are unimportant. This can lead to damaged relationships, reduced morale, and hindered collaboration. So what we want to do is practice patience by letting the speaker finish their thoughts before responding. Count to 3 after the speaker finishes before you reply to avoid jumping in too early. And reflect back what was said before offering your input, ensuring the speaker's ideas are acknowledged. Reassurance listening. Now, this style involves giving premature reassurances to make the speaker feel better without truly addressing their concerns. And it often results from wanting to offer comfort or avoid negative emotions ourselves. So while well-intentioned, reassurance listening can feel dismissive, and it trivializes the speaker's concerns, leaving them feeling unheard and invalidated. So to combat this, we want to acknowledge the speaker's emotions before offering reassurance and ask questions like, what's making you feel this way? To dig deeper into their concerns and validate their feelings by saying things like, it's understandable to feel worried in this situation. Problem-solving listening. So listeners who jump to provide advice or solutions rather than truly hearing the speaker's problem fall into this category. They may assume that they know what's best and rush in to fix the situation. And this type of listener often neglects the speaker's emotional needs. So many people want to feel heard and understood before they're ready to consider solutions. So to combat this, what we want to do is ask the speaker if they want advice or if they just need to talk through their problem. Hold back on offering solutions until the speaker has had the chance to fully explain the situation, and practice reflective listening by summarising their issue and checking for understanding before suggesting any solutions. Asking the speaker if they want advice or if they just need to talk through their problem, that's one that I use regularly, and that's one I use regularly with my kids as well, because sometimes people just want to vent, and that's okay. Do they just want to talk through their problem, or do they genuinely want your advice? So that's a great question to ask. Pseudo listening. So pseudo listeners pretend to listen, but they're actually distracted or mentally preoccupied. They may nod or give brief acknowledgements without truly absorbing the conversation. So the speaker quickly senses when someone isn't fully engaged, which erodes trust and respect, and vital information can be missed, leading to costly errors or misunderstandings. I am guilty of this in a shared workspace. It's very easy to be going about your workday whilst having a conversation, and I always have to bring myself back into the present moment, close down the computer and pay attention to the person speaking to me. Otherwise, you're getting Slack messages, emails are popping up, you may be getting phone calls, and it's just not ideal for good communication. So what we want to do is focus on eye contact and maintain an attentive posture during conversations. Mentally paraphrase what the speaker is saying to keep your mind engaged. And if you realise you've drifted off, ask the speaker to repeat key points and apologise for any lapses in attention. Now, a self-centered listener constantly relates the speaker's experiences to their own, steering the conversation back to themselves. And this can happen when the listener offers anecdotes or opinions that overshadow the original topic. Shifting the focus to yourself diminishes the speaker's experience and can make them feel sidelined. And it also derails meaningful dialogue, turning it into a one-sided conversation. So we want to resist the urge to share your own story unless it's directly relevant to helping the speaker. We want to keep the focus on the speaker by asking open-ended questions like, tell me more about how that affected you, and be mindful of airtime and try to let the speaker speak more than you. Narcissistic listeners, now they're primarily focused on how the conversation affects them, constantly bringing the discussion back to their own needs, achievements, or experiences, showing little interest in what the speaker is saying. Now, this approach makes the speaker feel ignored and undervalued, and it can also lead to resentment and breaks down relationships. So what we want to do is prioritize curiosity by asking follow-up questions that explore the speaker's perspective. Check your intentions. Are you listening to contribute or gain validation? Shift the focus back to the speaker, and then give your full attention to the speaker, avoiding any temptation to make it about yourself. Now, judgmental listeners evaluate and criticize the speaker's thoughts or feelings while they're being expressed. And this can include jumping to conclusions, forming opinions too quickly, or expressing disapproval. Judgmental listening shuts down communication by making the speaker feel attacked or defensive, and it discourages openness and vulnerability. So we want to adopt a neutral mindset and focus on listening to understand rather than judging or reacting. Suspend judgment until the speaker has fully explained their perspective, and show empathy by saying, I can see why you feel that way, even if you don't agree. Now, defensive listeners perceive criticism or attack in neutral statements. They take things personally and become defensive, often derailing the conversation with justifications and counterarguments. And this type of listening creates an adversarial dynamic where the speaker feels that they need to tiptoe around the listener's sensitivities. It hinders honest and productive communication. So we want to stay open-minded and remind yourself that feedback or comments aren't always personal attacks. Take a deep breath before responding if you feel yourself becoming defensive, and clarify intent by saying something like, I want to make sure I understand, is this feedback meant to help me improve? Now, fake agreeable listeners appear to agree with everything the speaker says, even if they have reservations. They avoid conflict at all costs and may nod or offer affirmations without truly believing or engaging in the conversation. And this leads to inauthentic conversations where important issues remain unaddressed, and it also prevents healthy debate and problem solving, as real concerns are swept under the rug. So to combat this, we want to practice assertive communication by respectfully voicing any concerns or disagreements. Be honest about your thoughts, even if they differ from the speaker's. Encourage open dialogue by saying, I see where you're coming from, but I have a different perspective. So by recognizing and avoiding these harmful listening styles, you can improve communication, build stronger relationships, and create a more open and collaborative environment. Practicing active listening and being mindful of your responses can make a significant difference in personal and professional interactions. So, effective ways to enhance your communication. Think about it. Before communicating, take a moment to organize your thoughts, consider your message, purpose, key points, and the most effective way to convey it. Don't rush. Take time to craft well thought out messages, especially for important matters. This approach helps you to avoid misunderstandings and errors. Make it easy. Simplify your language and message structure. Avoid jargon or overly complex terms. Make it easy for your audience to understand your message. Get to the point. Clear and concise communication is often more effective than lengthy explanations, and focus on delivering the essential information. Don't be afraid to try different communication methods and styles. Experiment with various channels and approaches to find what works best for different situations and audiences. Practice your communication skills regularly, both written and verbal forms. After each communication, reflect on what went well and what could be improved. And consider the big picture. Effective communication goes beyond words. Pay attention to your non-verbal cues, such as body language and tone of voice, as they can significantly impact the message you convey. And ask for feedback. Actively seek feedback from colleagues, supervisors, or mentors. Constructive feedback helps you to identify areas for improvement and refine your communication strategies. So modes of communication. and why it matters. So we have 5 modes of communication in the workplace. That is verbal, non-verbal, written, visual, and listening. Different types of communication, such as verbal, non-verbal, written, and visual, they're all useful in different ways. And it's important to understand the different types of communication and how to use them effectively to ensure that information is accurately relayed and properly received. So being able to select the most effective type of communication for any given situation is essential for successful communication in all areas of our lives. Now, some messages are best conveyed by email, others by a phone call, others by a face-to-face meeting. So you need to consider which mode will be the best for the message that you're delivering, not which mode you prefer to use. So an email can be easily misconstrued, but a face-to-face meeting could cause unnecessary anxiety. So evaluate the sensitivity and complexity of your message before choosing the mode. If clarity is essential or the topic may provoke an emotional response, a phone or in-person conversation may be best. And if the matter is straightforward and documentation is important, email could be more appropriate. So the key is to align the mode with the message and the recipient's needs, not just what's easiest for you. So have a think about your answers to these questions and then make your decision about the best way to deliver your message and which platform to use. So with your purpose, what's the purpose of the communication? What outcome do you want? Are you trying to inform, prompt discussion, get feedback? Think about the formality. Is the tone casual, formal, official, serious, friendly? How urgent is it? How quickly do you need people to receive or respond to it? How complex is the message? Is it multi-layered and likely to need clarification, explanation, or discussion? Is it important that your message is delivered and received accurately or word perfect, to which you'd use an email? Can the message be shared with others? How private or confidential is it? Does there need to be a record of this conversation? Is it likely to be emotive, either for the person delivering it or the person receiving it? Is it important that care, empathy, and compassion are conveyed? Do you need to ensure the person receives it with the right tone and support? Keywords, tone and support, that tells me that would be a face-to-face conversation or potentially a phone call if face-to-face wasn't available. And how many people is the communication for? Do they all need to receive the same message at the same time? What is the receiver's preferred method of communication? And if you don't know, ask. So email. Best time to use this when it's not urgent. You've had a phone call or a face-to-face first. Let the person know the email's coming. Not everyone sits at their desk with their inbox open. Now, I was having a conversation with a colleague about this today, and I think in the past when we were kind of, well, if you're from the dinosaur ages like me, an email is quite new. Look, people did just have their inboxes open, but not today. And I tend to see email as more of a mode of communication that doesn't require an urgent response. I think, realistically, around 24 hours is probably a reasonable time frame to expect a response to an email. Open to conversations around it, though. So emails are fact-based, and the intent is to inform. They're low emotion, easy to respond to and straightforward. They're for updating or sharing information with a large group, not requiring discussion, or the discussion is minimal. They're for confirming details of a conversation, perfect for documenting, recording, or providing clarity. They're to capture something when accuracy is important, such as instructions you need spelt out in writing. They're also not confidential. So unless you absolutely trust the recipient not to share, always keep that in mind. Now, one-to-one or face-to-face meetings, they're great for delivering confidential information regarding one person. Excellent for giving or receiving feedback. Great for when the communication is sensitive or emotive, or the need to convey care, empathy, and compassion is important through tone, body language, and words. If you want to tailor your content and delivery style to the other person. If it's not important for everyone to hear the same message at the same time in the same way, you want to coach, support, and encourage someone. If it's important to get an accurate read on the response through tone, body language, and what's unsaid. Now, group meeting. topic being discussed affects or involves multiple people, it's important or a difficult message, and you want to convey care, empathy, emotion, and compassion. So a group meeting is a perfect time to have a conversation. If one of your team members has had a loss in the family, if someone is unwell, to avoid just whispers throughout the team, that's when a group meeting is really suitable in that scenario. So if there's questions to answer, that's a great time to have a group meeting. Or if you want feedback from multiple people all at once. Phone call. Perfect timing when urgency is high. You need to convey the message fast or get a quick response. When a two-way conversation is needed. If it's a lengthy or complicated message that requires explanation or discussion, that's when we would avoid email, we would go for the phone call. When you need a detailed response, it's sensitive, so you want to talk it through rather than put it in writing. When conveying tone is important. If it's a difficult message, face-to-face is always preferable, but a phone call is preferable to email. And if you want to be able to listen closely to what is said. Text message. Now, that's not something that we use so much at Strawberry Seed, but I know that with a lot of our clients in building and trade, and I've also spoken to clients in the psychology practices, a lot of leaders do tend to use text message to communicate with their team. So just be mindful of when we're texting. The right time to use it is if it's urgent, if it's informal, if it's just for a quick Q&A or clarification. Short, keep in mind it's very unemotional. It needs to be specific, not vague or open to misinterpretation. And a good time to use a text is if you're just following up on a phone call, setting up a phone call, or to notify someone that you can't take a call. Instant messaging, more relevant to those that are office-based, albeit. So the time to use that is in an agreed upon platform. Otherwise, it's easy to miss important messages or lose track of when you read something, and it's hard to find again. That's absolutely an issue with Slack. I get messages, I lose them, I have to do a Control F to try and find it again. So the other time to use instant messages is when the communication is not urgent. So unless it's the agreed upon mode for urgent communication in your team, it's informal, it's great for a quick clarification question or an exchange is needed, and the message is simple. So tools to support better communication. As we just mentioned, the instant messaging platform. So tools like Slack, Microsoft Teams, and Google Chat allow teams to communicate instantly and collaborate in real time and share information easily. These platforms help teams to avoid long email chains and foster ongoing informal communication. Now, the thing about instant messaging that I want to raise is, and setting clear expectations, is have a little think about when someone calls in sick into the office. What is your preferred mode of communication for your team members? Are you happy for them to send a Slack message within the team? Would you prefer a text message? Would you prefer an email? Would you prefer a phone call? They're the sorts of realms where the areas get a little bit grey and conflict can arise. So yeah, have a little bit of a think about that. So set up separate channels for different projects or topics. Conversations stay organised and relevant to the right people. Now, platforms like Asana and Trello, they enable teams to manage tasks, deadlines, and projects in a clear and visual way. And these tools enhance communication by providing a central place for updates and progress tracking, ensuring everyone knows their roles and teams' goals. That's going to be relevant to different businesses. In a previous business I worked for, Asana was amazing and I used it day in and day out, but it's not relevant to my work that I do now. So these sorts of tools are available to you. Take them if you want them, leave them if you don't. Video conferencing tools. So for teams who work remotely, video conferencing tools such as Zoom, Microsoft Teams, or Google Meets, they're essential for face-to-face communication. And these platforms help to bridge the gap created by distance and add a personal touch to conversations. You can also use document sharing tools like Google Drive, Dropbox, and OneDrive to allow teams to share documents in real time and collaborate on edits and maintain version control. These tools facilitate communication by ensuring everyone is working on the latest version of a document, and that reduces errors and miscommunication. There's also feedback and survey tools to help collecting feedback, which is essential to improving communication and processes. So tools like SurveyMonkey or Google Forms, they allow leaders to gather anonymous or structured feedback from their teams. And these tools can be used to gauge team satisfaction or gather suggestions for improvement. There's also employee recognition platforms. So recognition platforms like Bonusly, they help to enforce positive communication by encouraging team members to acknowledge each other's achievements. And these platforms promote a culture of gratitude, transparency, and that can improve team morale and collaboration. Now, the reason I'm kind of smiling at this is because this is what we use at Strawberry Seed. And a tip is to encourage team members to frequently recognise each other's contributions, as it builds a more collaborative and supportive environment. So to encourage our team members, this is how we use Bonusly. So last week, this was one that I sent to two of our team members, Ella and Molly. Thanks for all your fabulous HR assistants. You're both doing amazing in your shared role. I've given them 25 Bonusly credits each. Now, these credits actually can be transferred into cash, such as PayPal. You can transfer them into Coles vouchers, Dan Murphy's vouchers. But for me, I purchased Taylor Swift merch. So I went to the Eras tour. It was expensive to get there, and I was not in a position to be able to fork out for merch. So my Bonusly credits that I earned from my team at Strawberry Seed allowed me to purchase my long desired merch. Now, another tool that's actually one of my favorites that I recommend to my clients at Strawberry Seed is This Is Me. And the reason I love it is that it allows you the opportunity to reflect on how to the best way to communicate with you, to reflect on your values, to reflect on your style, and how to help or support you. And I encourage you, I won't go entirely through it. This is actually a whole food for thought session that we offer at Strawberry Seed, and it is quite detailed, but this gives you a little bit of an overview of what it looks like. And it really fast tracks your getting to know your team. So a great opportunity to introduce this is just when you sort of want to hit reset on your team, but it's also a really good tool to use in recruitment. So wrapping it up, key takeaways. Effective listening is essential. Be mindful of harmful listening styles. Strive for active, empathetic listening to truly understand and connect with your team members. Create a safe environment where team members feel comfortable sharing their thoughts. Encourage transparency and lead by example. Pay attention to body language, tone, and facial expressions. These subtle cues play a crucial role in how messages are interpreted. Choose the right mode for each message, whether it's email, phone, or face-to-face, and consider the potential impact on the recipient. Leverage tools like project management software, messaging platforms, and collaborative apps to streamline and organise team communication. Use active constructive responding to show genuine interest and support, which builds stronger relationships through positive and meaningful feedback. Be clear and concise in all communication. Ensure everyone understands the objectives, expectations, and outcomes. Make communication a priority in team development. Regularly review and adapt communication strategies to meet evolving team needs. So these takeaways encapsulate the core strategies to strengthen communication within your team, fostering collaboration, trust, and success. So the 7 pillars of communication, this is our final slide. Empathy. Delivering your message, having first considered not only how it affects those who are receiving it, but also what is the best way to deliver that message to that group of people will significantly help your communication efforts. This is also particularly relevant in conversations where you don't agree with what the other person is saying. Seeing things from their point of view will help you to understand where they are coming from and where points of mutual agreement might occur. It's easy to consider communication as the way in which you speak to people, but just as important is the way that you listen. Creating an environment where people are comfortable and able to speak up and share concerns is extremely valuable. Before you deliver a message, take a few seconds to consider what you want to say. Clear, concise messages are easiest for others to understand and ensure that you get your point across without causing confusion. Over 90% of our communication comes from things we don't say, so it's really important to get your body language right. Try to maintain an open, relaxed stance and maintain eye contact without staring for too long. And be personable. Even when you're communicating in a business environment, it's beneficial to be personable, particularly with junior members of staff. People want to be treated like people, so take the time to ask a question about them. And it goes without saying that respect is vital for any conversation in the workplace. But how can you make sure that you're always being respectful? Use the other person's name, stay focused on the conversation, and ensure that you're listening actively to responses. Now, some messages are best conveyed via email, others via phone call, and others face-to-face. So consider which mode will be best for the message that you're delivering, not which mode you prefer to use. An email can easily be misconstrued, but a face-to-face meeting could cause unnecessary anxiety. And without further ado, we go to questions. I'm so happy to be here.
Well done. So look, we do have one question, something that's been put in the Q&A, and it's not so much a question, but more of some feedback, which I think is wonderful. Daniel has said, I have problems with neurotypicals who don't connect well with hearing stories back. As someone with ASD, I appreciate hearing stories returned when I share a problem. It helps me to feel validated and something that I've found other autistics appreciate. Daniel, I'm also recently been diagnosed as double neurospicy with both autism and ADHD, and I completely understand where you're coming from. I also have 2 children who are neurodiverse. So, and one of the things that I think more and more people are starting to understand is that people don't all communicate in the same way. And a lot of the things that Imelda's gone through today are things that I know myself, are things I've had to learn throughout my work life, because they are, I guess, as something that people who would be considered neurotypical, I guess they're the rules of engagement for communication that have generally been understood. And one of the things I would encourage for anybody that either has someone who's neurodiverse on their team or is neurodiverse themselves is to look at like a tool like the This Is Me that Imelda shared. Because that can be absolutely invaluable for you to share with those that you work with on a really regular basis, the way that you communicate, and help them understand that when you are hearing, that you do feel the need to, and I know I do it, that's one of the ways I show understanding, is that I will tell a story or I will relate an experience of my own back. And for me, I completely know that is not because I'm trying to take over the conversation. It's because that's the way I share my understanding. So being able to communicate that with your team, with people that you work with really regularly, can be really helpful so that they understand what it is that you need from the conversation and that you find that really helpful. But it also helps them understand that when you're doing it, it's not because you're trying to take over the conversation or turn it back to you. It's just your way of communicating. So the This Is Me tool is such a valuable tool. We use it in our leadership training. And we recommend it to clients a lot because everybody communicates differently. Now, Imelda and I, we're really different in how we prefer to communicate. Imelda would much prefer an email than a phone call. I'd much prefer a phone call than an email. And one of the ways that we manage that is we actually both understand that that's each other's preference. So then we're able to go, okay, in this instance, is it something I could just put in an email, and I don't need to have a conversation, even though that's my preference, then I will go that way. But there's other times where I go, no, I know this needs to be a conversation. And I also know there's times that Imelda rings me when she probably would have preferred to write me a really long email because she knows it's a conversation as well. So that can actually build over time when you get to know each other and how you like to work. But a tool like the This Is Me can be a really good way to circumnavigate that, those times when we have to get to know how each other communicates. And it can be as simple as something as someone prefers a text over an email. I do know I rang Imelda's phone earlier, and early this week I rang and left her message, and I didn't even leave a message because her message said, I don't actually really listen to my messages, so just text me. And it made me laugh because I know I also have other members of my family who are like that. And then there's people in my family I would never in a million years bother to even, as soon as I get their voicemail, I hang up because I know they're never going to listen to it. There's others that I text first. And in fact, a lot of the times, because we do work remotely, our team will send each other a message in Slack first and go, hey, do you have time for a call? And just because we're not looking at each other, we can't see what someone else is doing. Thank you, Daniel. Daniel's just said that this is me tool looks fantastic, and it's definitely something he will make use of. So I really appreciate that. Look, it is one of those things that I think you could introduce into your own workplace. Even if you're an employee, you could come in and say to your manager or your team, this is something that I think might make our communication clearer. And so much time is lost, I think, through poor communication. And it's good to remember we're not all perfect with it as well. Is there any other questions that anyone might have at this stage that you would like Imelda to answer? I think this is one of those ones where it's good to go away and maybe reflect on some of it. It can be quite confronting to reflect when you're watching something like this and go, oh my goodness, that's something that I do.
I recognize so many of the things, and a lot of the times with the stories shared, it's about trying to build connection. It's not that you're trying to take over the story, but it is something to be really mindful of. And I think a lot of those listening styles to avoid, they just create awareness. And I think once you know, then you can make those reasonable adjustments and just do better.
And one of the things that I know we talk about in the leadership training is you're a human managing a human, and you will not always be perfect. And I really think it's important that if you realize after a conversation with someone that maybe you weren't actively listening in that conversation, you weren't really engaged, you were distracted, and you realize afterwards and think, you know what, I really wasn't in that. There's nothing wrong with going back to that person later and saying, listen, I'm so sorry, I was really distracted in our last conversation. That's on me. And that helps build trust as well, because when you can acknowledge it and realize it, I know when I first get home from work, my kids like to always come in and talk to me. I try and hide in my bedroom first, because I know after spending all our day at work, working in HR, I've talked to people all day, and often I just need a bit of a gap to decompress. And if my kids are coming at me with lots of information, I will often have to go, I'm not listening to a word you're saying right now. You need to go away and give me time, and I'll come back to you later. And that's that self-awareness, which can be really helpful. I will, we haven't had any more questions come through. We have another one. We actually have one. What is your advice to help improve employees' soft skills, particularly for employees who are quite introverted or shy?
Good question, because I was like that when I started. And I'm just trying to think. Look, I hate to say that this is me tool again. I know that's terrible, but it's about understanding their preferred modes of communication, but also describing, because it's about everyone needs to make adjustments. I think being introverted, it can make them a little bit avoidant to communication. But look, we all come with our little backpack of traumas from past work experiences, and it's just trying to understand where they're coming from. And people change as well. They're not. I wouldn't try to fix anyone into that sort of, oh, they're introverted, we may need to do this or that. Carly, can you add to that at all?
Yeah, something that comes to mind straight away for me is if you have someone on your team that is more introverted and shy and maybe doesn't, first of all, build the relationship, because the more you build that relationship, the more they may open up to you, particularly one-on-one. It's also giving them space. So someone who's introverted, say in a group meeting, may not be the first one to come forward with their idea or to speak up. So if you have people like that in your team, if you're in a group meeting, maybe it's going around the team at the end and saying, letting everyone have their opportunity to, provide some information, maybe structuring it a little bit more so it isn't just the same people always speaking. I know in our team meetings, even though they're pretty informal on a Friday afternoon, we do just take turns and going around and having our say, because that's the purpose of the meeting. And we often get sidetracked and go off on side quests and talk about other things, but we generally come back and make sure everybody's had their say at the end of a meeting. Also, if you have someone who's introverted or shy, you may start with them, because they might feel really overwhelmed that everybody else has kind of got out what they were thinking. So it may be that you say to that person, I love your insights. Jane, like, what are your thoughts on this before you go to the group? Because you know that once the group starts, they're probably not going to have their say. But I think particularly with shyness, it's important to build that relationship. It's important to not push someone into things they're not comfortable with. So I've been asking Imelda to do webinars for 2 years, and I'm so excited that she has finally done one today. But she's done that because she's now comfortable doing that, and I think that's really important. Oh, I have a couple more questions. What is your advice with managing staff who need to continuously verbally process, again, neurodivergent habit, particularly when it interrupts other people's work? In this case, I'm thinking of I haven't addressed it as I fear they will shut down. We
You can
definitely have
answer that
some.
question.
Yeah, I resemble that question, and because I am a verbal person who verbally processes. I tend to choose who I verbally process with. So I have another member of our team, Frances. She's also a verbal processor as well. So often she's the person that I will choose. But again, I think if you can get to know, say to that person, sometimes it's nothing wrong with saying to them, you know what, sometimes I'm not a verbal processor. And so sometimes I can find it overwhelming, when someone's just sharing everything in their head. And, letting them know that, and maybe today, like saying, look, it's fine. Sometimes it's fine. Sometimes I find it overwhelming. Again, it's I say use the word communication, but it is. It's communicating with other people what works for you. Sometimes I'll say to my team, like I'll say to my, I'll use my kids because my kids is probably a really good example. There are times when I'll come home and I'm like, I am peopled out. I have used all my words today, and I just don't have anything left in me. And I think letting people know that, and it is hard because you don't want to shut someone down. You don't want to feel like they can't, but it's also a two-way conversation. So if it is making very overwhelming for you, you sharing that means that they can maybe be more mindful of that for you. But then there's other times when they may, it could be as simple as them saying to you, actually, I really need to talk this through with someone. Do you mind if I kind of brain dump on you right now? And then that gives you the option to say yes or no. So again, it's being able to go back and forth and set some boundaries for yourself, but also still being mindful that different people communicate in different ways. And I have days where I don't want to communicate with anybody. And I have days when I want to, and we're all different and we all have different needs. And I think that does apply to so many people. But the more you can be open and honest, like as a team, again, mentioning this as me, but as a team activity, getting everybody to do it. I ask all of our new team members to do it. And we haven't done it as a team for a while. So I think at our next team day, we'll probably go through and do it again, because also we evolve over time and we change our preferences and how we work. So hopefully that helps a little bit in that instance. But I think, letting someone know that it doesn't always work for you is helpful to both of you. Okay, is there anything else that anyone wants to pop in there before we finish up? I will mention that we have some leadership training. We have leadership training coming up on Monday in Sydney, but that's already sold out, so and cut off now, so you can't get onto that one. But we do have a leadership training workshop day coming up in when's that coming up? In November. Sorry, one more question. When you give feedback, but the listener takes it personally, how do you handle that situation? You only have control on how you communicate. You don't have control on how the message is received. And I think that's always really important. You've got to concentrate on the things that you have control over. Being able to say to someone, I can see that what I've said has made you upset. That wasn't my intent. What is it about what I've said that has upset you? Or maybe clarifying why you felt to give, I wanted to give you this feedback because I feel like this will help you improve in your role. And it's important for us to be able to discuss these things openly. Now, if someone is really upset and not taking it well, sometimes what can help is to say, you know what, obviously this has upset you. I'm going to let's step away from the conversation for now. Let's have a bit of it and give us both a chance to reflect and maybe catch up again tomorrow. Because sometimes when people have taken something personally, I love Imelda's little saying about that backpack of baggage that everybody brings to every conversation, because it's true. Everyone brings every interaction they've previously had. There may be a reason. They might have been micromanaged or had an overly critical manager before. So being able to, I guess, give them a bit of space and then maybe come back to it and then explore, you know, maybe it really surprised me that you took that so personally, like, and that wasn't my intention, but can we break that down and maybe try and help me understand why, and what it is that really upset you. But again, you can only control your messaging and what you're putting out. For many reasons, people can sometimes not react in the right ways. And, you know, when it comes to something like that, it can be very nuanced to that particular situation and all of the circumstances that are involved. And I guess that's where sometimes picking up the phone and speaking to one of us at Strawberry Seed can be really helpful, because yeah, we can talk you through that and talk through why it may have gotten to that point and how it could be avoided and how to come back after it. We also have some mental health first aid training coming up as well. I'm still happy to take more questions, by the way, if you want to pop them in. We have one coming up in Caulfield in October. That's actually a day face-to-face session. So we still have some opportunities there. If anyone wants to attend. And as I said, we've got one of leadership training, and all of our training information is on our training and development page on our website. It's also in our newsletters and things like that. You can sign up for the Punnet, which is our newsletter. We just had one go out this week. You can actually access other ones on our website as well, but you can jump on our website and sign up for that if you like. We're on all the social medias. We've now also got TikTok, because, you know, my Gen Zs have now got us on TikTok. Even Imelda's been on TikTok now. She was so happy about it. You know, we share a lot of, obviously we share what our upcoming training is, and we share a lot of hints and tips and articles and things around working with people, and generally just, you know, how to have conversations and how to do things like that. We also do have a webinar on having difficult conversations that I think was from last year, maybe. It'll be on our YouTube channel or on our website under advice videos. So you can always go back and access all of our previous webinars on a number of different topics. Is there anything? Yep, someone said thank you. You're welcome. Is there anything else that we can help with? I love that we've been able to answer some questions for some people today. Well, if no one's got any other questions to ask, I will let everybody go and finish the rest of their evening. As I said, we will be sending out a copy of today's webinar for everybody to be able to watch at their leisure, and copies of all of the slides as well. So you'll be able to access those. And if you want to chat to us any more about using a tool like This Is Me or any of the other things we do at Strawberry Seed, we're always open and ready to have an obligation-free chat with anybody. And I did see that there's a lot of our wonderful clients are on the list. I had a quick look at the registration list before we started today, and it was great to see so many names of some of our clients that have been with us for years on there. And we really appreciate that you continue to support us with these webinars and turn up and ask questions. And, you know, we do look at what you guys have suggested as future topics. And we've got one coming up in next month, which is just for hospitality businesses. So, you know, whether you're a winery or a restaurant or a cafe or a distillery or something like that. And also November, we've got one coming up on psychosocial hazards in the workplace. And then I think I've pretty much decided, because I've been doing some talks the last couple of days about AI, that we will be doing one on AI and HR and policies in the workplace early in 2025. So we hope to see you at one of our future webinars. I want to thank Imelda for her wonderful presentation today. And we look forward to seeing you at a future event. Thank you.